His profile vanished mid-conversation. 1 second, I was typing a message about dinner plans, the next I was staring at an error screen. User not found. I refreshed 3 times. Nothing changed. My last message sat there with a single grey checkmark. Unread. Unanswered. My stomach dropped in a way I'd never felt before. This wasn't normal. Marcus always replied within minutes. Always. For 6 months straight, he'd been the most consistent person in my life. I tried calling. The number didn't exist. I checked Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Everything was gone. Every trace of him erased like he'd never existed at all. My hands started shaking as a terrible thought crept into my mind. I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. The screen loaded slowly. Too slowly. That's when I checked my bank account. The balance appeared on my screen. $0. I blinked. Refreshed. Checked again. Savings account, $0. Checking account, $47.23. My life savings, $28,000 I'd spent 5 years building, was completely gone. Vanished in the time it took me to cook breakfast. I scrolled through transactions with growing horror. Transfers I didn't make. Wire payments to accounts I didn't recognize. All approved with my login credentials. All completed within the last 72 hours. My vision blurred at the edges. The last transfer happened 20 minutes ago. Right before his profile disappeared. My throat closed up as the truth crashed down. He didn't just ghost me. He'd been planning this. Preparing for this exact moment. He didn't just ghost me, he emptied me. I sat frozen on my couch, staring at the zero balance. Every conversation replayed in my head. Every promise. Every I love you. Every plan we made for our future together. The beach house we'd rent next summer. The trip to Italy for my 30th birthday. Moving to Portland where he claimed his architecture firm was based. All lies. Marcus Chen wasn't real. The photos weren't his. The voice on those late-night calls probably wasn't even his real voice. I'd fallen in love with someone who didn't exist. For 6 months, I'd built my entire emotional world around a phantom. I'd trusted him with my secrets, my fears, my money. I'd let him into the most vulnerable parts of my life. And he'd used every single word against me. I realized the man who promised forever was never real. Not his name. Not his life. I fell in love with a lie. My name is Paige Hollowell. I'm 32 years old. I work as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm in Austin, Texas. I pay my bills on time. I read reviews before buying anything. I don't click suspicious links. I'm careful. Independent. Practical. Or at least, I thought I was. I grew up watching my mom struggle after my dad left. I promised myself I'd never depend on anyone else financially. I built my savings dollar by dollar. I was proud of my discipline. My friends called me the responsible one. The planner. The one who always had her life together. So when people ask how this happened to me, someone smart, someone cautious, I don't have a good answer. That's the thing about scammers. They don't target stupid people. They target lonely people. People who want to believe in something good. And 6 months ago, I was lonelier than I'd admitted to anyone. So how did this happen? It started with a message request on Instagram. March 14th. A Tuesday evening. I was scrolling through my phone after a long workday, barely paying attention. The message was simple. Your design work is incredible. The colors in your latest project really caught my eye, especially how you used negative space. Do you freelance? No weird compliments about my appearance. No strange requests. Just a genuine comment about my work. I checked his profile. Marcus Chen. Architect based in Portland. His feed showed clean, modern buildings and thoughtful captions about sustainable design. He had 2,400 followers. Everything looked legitimate. I replied, thanks. I do take freelance projects occasionally. What did you have in mind? He responded immediately, actually, I'm just starting to explore that. But I'd love to hear about your process sometime. No pressure, I just appreciate good design when I see it. Polite. Thoughtful. Patient. Too perfect to question. The messages became daily. Good morning texts that made me smile before my coffee finished brewing. Questions about my day that felt genuinely curious. Voice notes where he talked about architecture philosophy and asked about my creative process. Within 2 weeks, we were talking every night. His texts arrived like clockwork. 7:15 a.m. Hope your presentation goes well today. 12:30 p.m. Lunch break. Wish I could take you to this amazing Thai place near my office. 9 p.m. Just got home. Call when you're free. The calls lasted hours. We talked about everything: childhood memories, career dreams, favorite books, travel bucket lists. He had opinions on things that mattered. He asked follow-up questions that showed he was actually listening. My morning coffee became incomplete without his text. My evenings felt empty without his voice. I found myself checking my phone constantly, smiling at notifications, planning my schedule around our calls. He became my routine. 6 weeks in, the conversations deepened. He told me about his father, how the pressure to take over the family business had pushed him into architecture instead. How his parents still didn't respect his choices. How he'd learned to build walls around his emotions to protect himself. His vulnerability felt real. Raw. Brave. So I shared my story. The childhood trauma of watching my dad walk out. The trust issues I'd carried into every relationship. The fear of abandonment that made me push people away before they could leave first. He listened without judgment. He said, "That's why you're so strong. You learned to survive alone. But you don't have to anymore." Those words broke something open inside me. We both had wounds. We both understood what it meant to be hurt by people we loved. We were healing together. Or so I thought. That's how trust was built. By month 3, we were planning a future. He sent me listings for houses in Portland. "What do you think about this neighborhood? Great design district nearby." He forwarded travel deals. "Greece in October? We could finally do that trip you mentioned." We talked about what our life together would look like. Where we'd live. How we'd blend our careers. Whether we wanted kids. What we'd name our dog. He made it all feel inevitable. Not rushed, just natural. Like we'd been heading toward each other our entire lives and finally found the right path. My friends started asking when they'd meet him. I told them soon. Once work calmed down. Once he finished his current project. Once the timing was right. I stopped questioning why we hadn't video called yet. He said he hated how he looked on camera. That he'd rather wait until we met in person. That our phone calls felt more intimate anyway. It made sense at the time. I stopped doubting. The first money request came in month 4. A Wednesday afternoon. He called, and his voice sounded different. Strained. Tired. "I hate to ask this," he said slowly. "But I'm in a difficult situation." His father had been hospitalized. The family business was struggling. Marcus needed to cover some immediate medical bills, but his accounts were temporarily frozen due to an issue with his architecture firm's payroll system. Just a banking error. Would be resolved in a few days. Could I help? Just $800. He'd pay me back the moment his accounts cleared. I didn't hesitate. He was my person. He'd supported me emotionally for months. This was my chance to support him back. What kind of partner would I be if I said no during his crisis? I sent the money through a payment app he suggested. Quick and easy. He sent flowers the next day with a note, "You saved me. I'll never forget this." I helped without hesitation. 2 weeks later, another emergency. The payroll issue was taking longer to resolve. His father needed surgery. The medical bills were piling up. Marcus was drowning. He promised to pay me back with interest. He sent screenshots of pending transactions that looked official. He apologized repeatedly for putting me in this position. $1,500 this time. Then $2,200 3 weeks later for a temporary cash flow problem at work. Then $3,800 when his car broke down during a family emergency trip. Each request came with detailed explanations, documentation, promises of repayment, plans for how we'd laugh about this stressful period once it was behind us. The amounts grew, but so did my commitment. We'd been together 6 months now. Real relationships required sacrifice. This was temporary. He'd do the same for me. My savings balance shrank steadily, but I told myself it was an investment in our future. Love made me rationalize. My best friend Jenna started asking questions. Have you met him in person yet? Have you video called? Paige, 6 months is a long time. I got defensive. We're both busy. Long distance is hard. You don't understand our connection. She pressed harder. How much money have you sent him? I lied. Just a little. He's paying me back. Marcus had warned me this would happen. People who haven't experienced real connection won't understand what we have. They'll try to create doubt because they're jealous or cynical. So I stopped mentioning him to Jenna. Stopped talking about him at work. Kept our relationship private. He said they wouldn't understand. When my sister called to check in, I kept the conversation surface level. When my mom asked if I was seeing anyone, I changed the subject. I convinced myself I was protecting what we had from outside negativity. But really, I was isolating myself. Cutting off the people who might have seen the truth. That was intentional. Month 6 brought the final request. Marcus's voice was urgent. Almost desperate. His father's condition had worsened. The medical bills had exceeded insurance coverage. The family business was on the verge of collapse. If he didn't cover this amount, everything would fall apart. $8,700. This is the last time, he promised. Once this is handled, I'm coming to Austin. We'll finally meet in person. I'll pay back every cent, and we'll start our real life together. My savings account held $9,100. Everything I'd built over 5 years. My emergency fund. My security net. My independence. But he needed me. And once this crisis passed, we'd be together. Really together. He promised to visit once this was resolved. I transferred the money at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. I fell asleep imagining our first hug. The relief on his face. The beginning of our actual, physical life together. When I woke up Friday morning, I sent him a message. It's done. I love you. We'll get through this. I sent the last payment. The message never delivered. Friday afternoon, no response. Friday evening, calls went straight to a disconnected message. Saturday morning, his Instagram profile was gone. By Saturday evening, every platform we'd used to communicate showed the same result. User not found. Number disconnected. Email bounced back. I refreshed obsessively. I checked spam folders. I searched his name combined with every detail he'd mentioned, his architecture firm, his father's business, the hospitals he'd mentioned. Nothing. I sat on my bathroom floor at 2 a.m. Sunday morning, phone clutched in shaking hands, finally accepting what I'd been refusing to see. Marcus Chen didn't exist. He'd never existed. And I'd just handed a stranger my entire life savings. No reply. No call. No explanation. Just emptiness. Sunday morning, I stopped crying and started thinking. I couldn't get the money back by falling apart. I couldn't undo what happened by hiding in shame. I needed to be strategic. I opened my laptop and created a folder labeled evidence. I took screenshots of every conversation. Every message where he declared love. Every request for money. Every promise to pay me back. Every excuse for why we couldn't video call. I downloaded our voice messages. I saved payment confirmations showing every transfer. I documented dates, amounts, and the platforms we'd used. I wrote down every detail I remembered. The names he'd mentioned. The locations he'd described. The inconsistencies I'd ignored. My hands were steady now. My mind was clear. This wasn't about getting my money back anymore. This was about making sure he couldn't do this to someone else. I don't cry, I document. Monday morning, I started making calls. First, my bank. I reported the fraudulent transfers. They opened an investigation but warned me the chances of recovery were slim. The money had been wired internationally. The accounts were likely closed by now. Next, I filed reports with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the Federal Trade Commission, and local police. Each person I spoke with was sympathetic but realistic. These cases were difficult to trace. Scammers used sophisticated methods to hide their identities. Then I contacted the platforms where we'd met: Instagram, the payment apps, the messaging services. I submitted detailed reports with all my evidence. I spent hours on hold, filling out forms, repeating my story to different departments. By Tuesday afternoon, a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit called me back. "Ms. Hollowell," she said carefully, "the name Marcus Chen appears in our database multiple times." My breath caught. They've heard his name before. The detective sent me to a private online group for scam victims. There were hundreds of us. Maybe thousands. Different faces. Different names. Same playbook. Marcus Chen in Portland. David Park in Seattle. James Liu in San Francisco. All architects. All with sick fathers. All with temporary banking issues. The profile pictures varied, but the story structure was identical. The emotional manipulation techniques matched perfectly. Even some of his exact phrases appeared in other victims' screenshots. "You're so strong for surviving alone, but you don't have to anymore. People who haven't experienced real connection won't understand what we have. This is temporary. Once this is resolved, we'll start our real life together." Copy and paste vulnerability. Industrial scale emotional exploitation. Some victims had lost more than me. One woman sent $67,000. A retired teacher lost her pension. A recent widow drained her late husband's life insurance. We were teachers, nurses, engineers, lawyers. Smart, capable people who'd been expertly manipulated during moments of loneliness. I learned I'm not alone. Not even close. He's done these many times. I left the support group after 2 weeks. Not because I didn't need help, but because I couldn't keep reading stories of ongoing manipulation. Victims still sending money. Still believing their Marcus was different. Still certain love would triumph. I couldn't save them. I could barely save myself. So, I focused on healing. I blocked the support group notifications. I stopped searching for updates about the case. I deleted our old conversations from my phone. The detective had my evidence. The FBI had my report. Interpol was involved now, apparently. International fraud cases moved slowly, but they were building something. I had to trust the process and let go. For the first time in months, I focused on my actual life. My real friends. My tangible goals. I stopped searching for him. And let the system work. 7 weeks after Marcus disappeared, I was cooking dinner when my phone lit up. A news alert. I almost ignored it. But the headline caught my eye. International romance scam ring busted, 30 victims, $2.1 million stolen. My hand froze on the spatula. The article showed a row of mugshots. The third face stopped my heart. Different hair. Older than the photos he'd sent me. But the eyes were the same. That same warm expression I'd fallen in love with through a screen. Except now it was paired with a completely different name. The caption read, "Kelvin Zhao, 34, Malaysian national, detained in Kuala Lumpur following joint operation between FBI and Malaysian authorities." Weeks later, I see a familiar face on the news. Not under his fake name. I read the article 3 times, hands shaking. Kelvin Zhao. Not Marcus Chen. Not American. Not an architect. Not anything he'd claimed to be. A professional scammer working from Malaysia, using dozens of fake identities across multiple platforms. He targeted women in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Always the same profession cover story. Always the same emotional manipulation tactics. The article detailed his operation. He had a team. writers who crafted the messages, photo editors who created convincing fake profiles, researchers who found personal details about targets to build customized emotional connections. This wasn't some desperate person making bad choices. This was a business. A calculated, organized criminal enterprise. The romance was a script. The crisis was manufactured. Even the voice on those calls might have been an actor. My stomach flipped reading about the scope. 30 confirmed victims. Probably more who never reported it. Years of operation. Millions of dollars stolen. His real name. His real country. His real crimes. My stomach flips. The news coverage expanded over the following days. More details emerged. More victims came forward. The investigation had been building for 18 months. My report had been part of a pattern that finally gave authorities enough evidence for an international arrest warrant. Malaysian police raided his apartment and found servers, scripts, and detailed victim files. My name was in there, along with my psychological profile, my vulnerabilities, my financial records he'd somehow obtained. He'd studied me, customized his approach, knew exactly which emotional buttons to press. Other victims were interviewed. A nurse from Toronto who'd sent $43,000. A teacher from London who'd lost her retirement savings. An engineer from Sydney who'd taken out loans to help her soulmate. The stories were heartbreaking. And identical. The news reports called it one of the largest romance fraud operations ever busted. Authorities were working to trace the money, but most of it was gone. Laundered through cryptocurrency and offshore accounts. International fraud. Dozens of victims. His finished. The arrests happened quickly once the case went public. Kelvin Zhao was extradited to the United States to face federal charges. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Money laundering. Conspiracy. The charges carried decades of potential prison time. His team members were arrested across 3 countries. The servers were seized. The fake profiles were shut down. The accounts were frozen. Every news outlet picked up the story. His face was everywhere. The smooth-talking scammer who'd stolen millions. The elaborate operation that preyed on lonely hearts. Asset seizure orders were issued. Investigators tried to recover what they could, though they warned us most of the money was unrecoverable. I watched his mugshot appear on my screen during the evening news. My mother texted, "Did you see this story? Terrible what he did to those poor women." She didn't know I was one of them. Arrests. Asset seizures. Public exposure. The fantasy dies loudly. Kelvin Zhao never tried to contact me. Not during the arrest. Not during the investigation. Not when he made bail on other charges before extradition. No apology. No explanation. No acknowledgement that I'd been a human being whose life he'd destroyed. Some victims reported receiving threatening messages, telling them not to testify. Others got apologetic emails trying to manipulate them one last time. I got nothing. Maybe because I'd documented everything so thoroughly. Maybe because I'd cooperated completely with investigators. Maybe I just wasn't worth the effort anymore. The detective said that was common. Once scammers knew a victim had reported them, they moved on. No point wasting energy on someone who couldn't be manipulated further. That absence of contact somehow hurt more than I expected. Even his cruelty would have been acknowledgement that I'd mattered, even as a target. But I was just a file number. A transaction. Completely forgettable. He never reaches out. He can't. That silence finally feels safe. 3 months after his arrest, I did something I never thought I'd do. I spoke publicly about what happened. The local news wanted to interview victims for a consumer protection segment. I said yes. My face was on screen. My real name was used. I told my story without hiding, without shame, without protecting the privacy of something that should never have been private. I'm a smart person, I said to the camera. I'm educated. I'm careful. And I still fell for this. Because these scammers are professionals. They don't target stupid people, they target lonely people. And loneliness can happen to anyone. My mother called crying after it aired. My friends reached out with support. Strangers messaged me thanking me for speaking up. And something shifted. The shame I'd been carrying, the humiliation of being stupid enough to fall for this, started to lift. I wasn't stupid. I was human. I'd wanted connection in a disconnected world. That wasn't weakness. I tell my story, without shame. The power shifts. Rebuilding took time. More time than I wanted. I couldn't replace $28,000 overnight. I picked up freelance projects. I worked extra hours. I created a new savings account and watched it grow dollar by dollar again. But the money was the easy part. Rebuilding trust was harder. Trusting myself. Trusting my judgment. Trusting that not everyone with a kind message had ulterior motives. I went to therapy. I learned about manipulation tactics and red flags I'd missed. I studied the psychology of scams so I could spot the patterns. I reconnected with Jenna. I apologized for pushing her away. She forgave me immediately. I just wanted you to be safe, she said. I'm glad you're here. I set boundaries. With my time. With my money. With my heart. And slowly, very slowly, I started feeling like myself again. Not the same version of myself from before Marcus. But a stronger, wiser, more resilient version. I rebuild savings. Boundaries. Confidence. Stronger than before. Kelvin Zhao was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The news barely made headlines. Just a small article buried in the back pages. The story had moved on. The public had forgotten. But I hadn't. I thought about writing him a letter. Telling him about the nights I couldn't sleep. The panic attacks when my bank app opened. The way I flinched at genuine compliments because I couldn't trust kindness anymore. But I didn't. He didn't deserve my words. He didn't deserve to know he'd affected me at all. Instead, I framed the last text I'd sent him before everything collapsed. It's done. I love you. We'll get through this. It hangs in my home office now. Not as a reminder of my stupidity, but as a reminder of my capacity to love, to trust, to hope, even when it wasn't deserved. He used love as a weapon and lost everything when the truth surfaced. I lost money but kept my integrity, my voice, and my future. He's in prison. I'm free. And that's a trade I survived.